Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandiazo back with a Curve Banger deck profile. So if you guys enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe. This time we are covering our second deck profile of DZZ2 Virgila. So as I read this originally Virina, so I thought we were getting another Virina, but in fact it is the new ride line from the Vanguard manga Skyride, I believe it's called. I have no idea what takes place in it, and honestly when we first got the cards revealed I was kind of like they're meh, but then after playing it I realized the deck is oddly consistent, much more than it should be. So let's go and get the starter shot and see what we got. And yeah, so first up today we have our energy generator. So it's the standard new card that everyone's getting. You may only have one in your ride deck, as it is a ride deck crest. Auto ride deck, when you would ride, put this card into your crest zone, and then if you win second, your energy charge 3 continues. You may have to 10 energies, and auto at the beginning of your ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy blast 7 to draw a card. All around very solid. It can get you more energy at the start of every turn, and this deck does take up energy from the main Vanguard and from an extra supporting card that you kind of want to use as often as possible. So sometimes the energy can conflict with one another, but it is able to get you more energy each turn, and if you somehow have 7 that you can use up for a random reason, you can get a draw, but most likely you will never use that, but it is there if you need it. Either way though, it's a very nice card to have, and I don't know why I'm now truly believing from the Gandiva video that there's going to be another ride deck crest that's an energy generator at some point down the line. Next up, we have our starter, and that is Virgila. So grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto, roll opponent for second draw card, standard starter, nothing too special about it. None of the ride line really requires Virgila, but I choose to run it because A, all of them are a unique race, which is Cyber Dragon, which is not supported in any way, shape, or form, but I just think he actually looks cool, and again, I didn't like their look originally, and now for some reason I do. So Virgila's the starter, again, not required, so you can really run any starter, but I just like to have them for the theme, so one of them in the ride deck. Then we have our triggers. First we're bringing the over trigger of Dragon Deity, King of Resurgence, Drag Veda. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger, move trigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one mutes, it gets supposed to move for the turn, and you're revealed during your check, activate its additional effect, which you can choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. All around pretty solid, as it's a way to get more Vanguard attacks. It gets you a million and a draw very easily, and in a deck that can multi-attack with the rear guards, being able to use Drag Veda, which could possibly get you even more rear guard attacks inherently, is all around pretty solid. You can run Walnut for, I guess, better rear guard attacks because it would pass on to other ones, especially like if you don't have the CB to stand your rear guards, but I do like having Drag Veda more because I like to have the Vanguard be able to attack again with more drive checks, and also in the sense of if you do stand the Vanguard and you have the CB to restand your rear guards, you get an extra attack out of it compared to Walnut. So our Drag Veda is very solid. I do like them, so that's the over trigger of the choice. And we have our normal trigger. You run 3 copies of Blaze Maiden Parama, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, continues guard circle. If opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, she's 5k shield, she's a 20k shield. And not to mention the fact she's a front trigger. Originally I had Flare Veil in her place, and I have actually not seen Parama in ages. But the reason why I chose Parama over Flare Veil here, and honestly the video on the channel kind of like describes this, is because I expected the deck originally to be struggling in the rear guard making department, so I gave it more draws. And then I realized the deck can pump out rear guards like the wazoo. So then I was like, let's just focus on numbers. So 3 of Parama for, front pressuring, give more numbers to front row. And again, in a deck that can restand rear guards, we're going to want pressure on those rear guards in case we have to waste a boost on the first attack. So all around Parama is really nice for that. 3 of, and she also has more shield compared to Flare Veil, technically. Then we have 8 crits, 4 copies of Wicked Beast Sunagosari, grades 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. This really can be any crit you want. I just chose Sunagosari because she's one of the more recently revealed crits. Then we have 4 copies of Burning Flow Dragon, grades 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, everything out of that boosted. Put it to soul, choose one views, it gets plus 2k for the turn, all around pretty solid, because this deck can run into soul problems if, like, you play very specifically, it can run into soul problems, but you probably will never do that because it is not optimal to try that at all. But it being able to go to soul if you really needed to is nice, and also the sense that you can get an extra 2k out of it as well is also pretty solid as well. So we run 8 crits for the pressure because again we have restanding rear guards and possible restanding Vanguards next to Drag Veda, so obviously we're going to want crit pressure. Then we run 4 heals and Gentle Breeze, Dragon Dino Breeze, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, standard heal, nothing too special about it. You can really run any heal you want because it's a free heal regardless, but I prefer Dino Breeze because he came out closer to the time of Virgilia's release. And if you want to run counter heals, you can, but I personally like the regular heals because they're consistent 15k shields compared to fluctuating 10 to 25. But it is what it is. 4 of Dino Breeze, run whatever heal you want. Let me move on to our grade ones. First up, we run 4 copies of our PG. This can really be anything, but I choose to run this one just because it's a new PG and it came out close to the time of Virgilia's reveal. And that is Guardian Monk of Raging Flames Monju, grade 1 boost, 0 social K base, contains Sentinel. You have to 4 Sentinels in your deck and also play on guard circle. Choose one of your units, it cannot be hit in battle. And if your hand has 2 more cards in it, choose a card from hand card to standard PG. Nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this and only one of the cards in your hand when placed on guard circle, you don't have to go, is great because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game. And honestly, the deck does kind of want to pressure in the early game. It doesn't need to, but if also it might come back to bite you in the butt if you proceed to go too early in the wrong situation. But if you know what you're doing, then you can afford to early game rush, and then when your opponent tries to counterattack you, you can just throw down Monju, and then you're safe. All around, Monju is a very solid PG. You can run Triple Molecular Dragon, or you can run Plasma Catapult Dragon because they have I think it's called Plasma Catapult. No, wait, no, that's the thing from Narukami. Sparkle Rejector Dragon, there we go. You can run either or this one because they all have the exact same skill. But for Monju, because again, he does come out more recently to the time of Virgilia's reveal, 4 of Monju. I'm never going to be able to say that thing's name right. I never will be able to. And move on to our next grade one, 4 copies of Beat Up Draco Kid. So where there is a generic deck that has space, you will find Beat Up Draco Kid if I'm the one that built it, because I really think Beat Up Draco Kid is a cool looking card, and I don't care if he works with the deck or not, I will find some way to tech him in. So Beat Up is a grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base, contains rear guard. If you played in normal order this turn, he gets plus 5,000 power, so 13k. Very nice to have a 13k booster in the deck, and then auto and placed on rear guard circle. Counter boss 1 search up to 1, or drop zone for up to 1, a serious fight, reveal player to hand, and if you search your deck, you shuffle it. All around pretty solid because while it does eat into the possible CB problem and might be a causer of it, it can search your deck for an order which can retire a rear guard, and since the main Vanguard can retire a rear guard as well each turn, that means technically speaking you can get rid of your opponent's front row while still having 4 attacks each turn, and Beat Up would still be at 13k. All around, Beat Up is a very solid grade 1. Again, he can lead to a counter boss problem, but he's a very fun card to play in the early game, especially if you already have a serious fight in hand, since it can just recycle itself every time you play it. So pretty much you can just call down your Beat Ups early and then rush your opponent down, and then later after you recycle your order, you then just keep playing it every turn, retire an opponent's rear guard, and Beat Up will still get the 5k. All around, very solid grade 1. I like him a lot, and like I said, any generic deck I can put him in, I will for a Beat Up. And we have 4 copies of Twin Strike of Duststorm Orlando. Orlando is here under the following reasons. If Virgilia's skill worked during the battle phase, and if it was also if it retired instead of bound, then I would have used Guise for it, because I really wanted to use Guise for in a DZ set 2 deck for some reason. But then we got Varga Dragras and the advent of Drago Resonance, so that kind of filled itself out. Anyways, Twin Strike Orlando, a card I haven't used in ages, and it just came to mind when I was playing them when I wanted to build the more aggressive version of this deck, is a grade 1 boost, 5k shield, AK base, act soul. If your opponent's rear guard's retired this turn, counter boss 1, call this card to rear guard circle, and then auto rear guard when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets plus 5,000 power until the end of that turn. All around pretty solid. You only have one way of retiring during the main phase, and that is via a serious fight thanks to Beat Up. So you will probably never call this from Soul, but if you have to because you really need rear guards, there you go. But again, might eat into the CV problem. The part it's really here for is to send us up to Soul and get the Vanguard 5k, because the Vanguard doesn't really have a way to make numbers outside of the order, which doesn't like to show up for some reason, but that's why we put Plan B in this deck. But anyways, Orlando being able to increase the Vanguard's power by 5k and make it even of a bigger beat stick, or at least a beat stick nonetheless, is really helpful. So 4 copies of Orlando, especially because it's one of the cards that benefits from having to be boosted first before you get to restand a rear guard. So good grade 1 for him. And we have 4 copies of Plan B for the order that doesn't like to show up, and that is Dancing Princess of Beautiful Flames, Justina. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, AK base. I don't know why she, like, every set, like, there's one card specifically that I really like the art of, or, like, somewhere between 1 and 10, and, like, Justina is one of those cards that I just really like the art of for some arbitrary reason. Like, she looks so cool, and her art just looks, I don't know, her dress looks really flowy, too. Anyways, auto, when placed on the rear guard circle from the hand, if you do not play an order this turn, ditch a hand card, charge up to 1 order card without Regardless Piece, discard it, and then it gets continuous. This card can be played from drop zone, and when it be played and put into the drop zone, put it to bottom of deck instead until end of turn, shuffle the deck. So pretty much the important part to note here is there is a very powerful order in this deck that does so much for it, but it doesn't like to show up when I tried to play it, and it's only ever shown up once on its own, so I decided to run Justina to basically turbo it out. Justina is pretty solid, though the deck being able to make rear guards out the wazoo means you don't really need to worry about hand cards too much outside of defending, so you can afford to drop one every now and again for Justina's search, and then just keep pumping the Vanguards with numbers and then making it a big beat stick. All around though, Justina is a very solid grade 1. I do love her skill a lot. I think she's great. She's just an easy 4 of in this deck. Also, she can search a serious fight if you really need her to. I mean, that's if you really need her to, but it is what it is, so 4 of her. Then we move on to our last grade 1 in the deck, 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, because sadly it doesn't have a rear guard skill, but I will accept its ride deck skills respectively, because it has an actual vanguard skill, and that is Rising Star Virgila, so grade 1 boost, 5 Kishot, AK base. It was originally my favorite of the Virgila arts, and then it slowly became the grade 0, and then became the grade 2, and then became the grade 3. So basically it started out as the first one, and then afterwards it always went like grade going up. Anyways, Virgila skill, continues Vanguard during your turn, it gets plus 2k for each of your rear guards. Again, this is the reason why you kind of want to rush in the early game, not just to bring your opponent to higher damage early, but because Virgila will get more numbers per, and like if you call 2 beat-ups to the side and Orlando behind him, he'll automatically be at 20k, which is a pretty good number to be at on grade 1. And then continues Vanguard, when you would ride from your ride deck, you can ride by Soul Blasting 1 instead of choosing a card from your discard it. And again, the deck doesn't really use up too much Soul. In fact, this is one of the only 2 cards in the deck that actually does use up Soul, the only other one being a serious fight. So pretty much you will always use that skill, use that skill to Soul Blast 1, just because it is a free ride deck, so in a deck that wants to spam more rear guard. So, if you're playing against a rear guard nuke deck, you obviously want to be able to conserve those hand cards to refill the rear guard, even if it is just with triggers, because triggers do more than nothing. So, one of Virgila in the ride deck, none in the main deck, because sadly has no rear guard skills, but it has a decent vanguard skill for early game rushing. Then we move on to our grade 2s. Run 4 copies of Dragwood or Farheart. Grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when is put on guard circle from hand or discarded from the hand or riding from the ride deck. By counter blasting 1 or energy blasting 3, you get to draw a card. All around pretty solid. The only downside is it eats into energy, which the main grade 3 over here uses, and then it eats into CB, which again, the main grade 3 over here uses. I like how both of them have the exact same cost too, so like you genuinely have to think about it. And you do have to think about it because people can just starve you of CB and Counterblast because your really good order also costs CB. So Farheart, you use them when you can. Use them when you can, because that defensive skill, being able to place them on guard circle and still get a draw, has saved me, granted only twice, but like twice, considering it's only been out for 2 sets, is pretty important. So I like him, and he deserves his place in this deck. And then auto when placed on rear guard circle, if Persona wrote that turn, counter blast 1 or energy blast 3, again, it could eat into both resources, especially when your main grade 3 is taking up both of the same cost. But you do what you do. Choose a grade 1 card, let Sentinel from your drop zone, call it to back or rear guard circle. Okay. You do not use that skill unless you absolutely have to, because everything cost-wise technically goes to Virgila on the Vanguard circle. You only use this skill if you are getting board nuked, and then you need to win that turn. And if you have enough CB to use this, and this, or at the very least Stardust Blade and Farheart. You only do it that way, and if you have no other ways to call rear guards. That's the only reason you use that skill, because it will eat into everything else. For Farheart, really good card, though, if you do get to pull him off, because he does get you more rear guards, and he can make you have defensive abilities by pissing on guard circle, and he can replace himself with Riot deck if you need him to, so for Farheart. I mean, I will say this, though, if you go second with this deck, you are almost guaranteed never to have an energy problem, thanks to you getting a free energy charge 3 off of the order at the very start of the game. So, like, take that as you will. Just basically what I'm telling you is go second with this deck. And move on to our next grade 2. We got 4 copies of Blast Artillery Dragon Brachioforce. I would have ran the alt art here, except the alt art so far only has an exclusive Japan text, and I try to run as little Japanese cards as possible in my decks, aka the reason why I don't run promos. So yeah, anyways, Brachioforce, grade 2 and 5 Kishio, 10k base. Auto rear guard, when this unit attacks, hits, retire this card, draw a card, choose opponent's rear guard, retire it. All around pretty solid because it can get rid of more of your opponent's rear guards. And yes, this is reason to run guys for in a deck, but not a good enough reason, because that solely relies on the fact of Brachioforce hitting, and if someone sees guys for it on the board on the behind the re-standing column, they're not gonna let Brachioforce hit regardless of what you try, especially because it also nets them a draw while also getting rid of an opponent's rear guard. But all around, pretty good. It helps increase the hand, it helps reduce the opponent's board, and it has on hit pressure when the Vanguard already restands something else, and you're probably just gonna stack a bunch of triggers onto that one. So Brachioforce is almost guaranteed to go through, or makes your entire board they're not blocking it, or they're just blocking everything, or pretty much you can force your opponent to pick the one that they're going to take. So 4 of Brachioforce, very solid card, and can add up for advantage later on. Then we have the last card in the deck, 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, of Shooting Star Virgila, so grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, act Vanguard circle once per turn. If you have 4 more cards, or 4 more rear guards, reveal a Virgila in this card name from your ride deck, and this unit gets +1 crit for the turn. The day this was revealed, we got the Blaster Blade promo, and I find it funny because the V version almost had the exact same skill, word for word. You had to have 4 more rear guards, and it would get the crit if it was on Vanguard Circle, and the only difference was it obviously didn't require the ride deck because the ride deck didn't exist in V. But being able to, just basically reveal this and just get the extra crit is all around pretty solid. And to be more exact, it's just reveal a card with Virgila and its card name from your ride deck. So if you find a way to Soul Blast out either this or your starter, and then bot them back into the ride deck via the Jewel Beast, or like something else that does almost the exact same thing, then you can just reveal them, and then not have to reveal this, and you would still get the crit. And the reason why I specify that is because his Rotapon skill is extremely generic, and it is auto when Rotapon. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 2 card from among them, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle the deck. And if it was Rotapon by a grade 3 or grade with Virgila's card name, you look at all the cards in your deck instead of just 7. So while yes, obviously you want to run a Virgilia grade 3 to pull that off, again, if you find a way to loop back either the starter or the grade 1 via like the Jewel Beast, I think its name is like Ruby, the ones that like loop back 2 cards in the ride deck and got the 15k shield, or then you can just use Virgila to reveal that and you would still get the crit, and then you can have any grade 3 you want in your ride deck. I can't wait to see people try to figure that one out, because having a grade 2 that has double critical with like some broken grade 3 as the main grade 3, and then also a top 7 search for any grade 2, I can't wait to see the craziness of that. Heck, I would see people running in crossover dress. Oh god, I can see the chaos. They're going to run in crossover dress, aren't they? Because none of the ride line in crossover dress or overdress requires the starter. I mean, yeah, they require the specific grade 2. Oh god, they're going to find a way to do it, aren't they? Well, I think I've just predicted the meta on pure accident. Either way, though, being able to search your entire deck for any free grade 2 is solid. That's why I was trying to be like depicting when I made this, picked like very specific grade 2s that I know are good, and Dragon Empire has good grade 2s, a lot of them being overdress units, and therefore, because I'm not running Trickstar, I can't use them. So, yeah, one of Virgila, very solid free crit and early game pressure, which benefits from, free ride deck over here, and not to mention the fact it literally searches your entire deck for any grade 2 card. Also counting these 2, which I now realize it doesn't specify units, so this entire time I could have been grabbing that. Well, you live and you learn. One of them this in the ride deck, none in the main deck, but it has a really good ride deck and Vanguard skill, so that's all I'm going to say. And we move on to our last unit card in the deck. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck of Relight the Star Virgila. So, relight, not rewrite, okay. Grade 3 to 9% 13k base, act Vanguard Circle once per turn, Energy Blast 3, choose an opponent's rear guard, bind it, and then choose up to 1 grade 2 card from your drops and call it to rear guard. I do not know why, this entire deck focuses specifically on grade 2s. It doesn't make sense to me. And the reason why I say the entire deck, even though the rest of the ride line outside of this one doesn't focus on it, is because the other skill is Auto Vanguard. When this unit attacks, counterblast one, choose a grade 2 rear guard and stand it. And the reason why I specify that it's the entire deck that focuses on it, because most of the time you're going to be on your grade 3, meaning most of the time you're going to try to use that grade 3 skill, and considering both of its skill requires specifically grade 2s, not grade 2s or more, or grade 2s or higher, or grade 2 or less, it's specifically grade 2, you're probably going to be focusing a lot on grade 2s. And I tried to find really good grade 2s in Dragon Empire, and I couldn't find any. These are the only 2 I can think of, because Brachiosaurus, everyone says is good. And then Farhar, well, he saved me, so he deserves to be in here. But, cool, being able to just Energy Blast 3, not take up Soul, though I wish he did actually Soul Blast, because there are a lot more cards to fix Soul problems than there are to fix Energy problems, because, Energy is new. But being able to Energy Blast and just get rid of opponent's rear guard, specifically bind it, so unless they are playing something because binding is going to be face up, so unless they're playing something like Shoujo Doji or something that benefits from their cards being bound, specifically face up, Virgila's not going to do anything. I don't even think Gandiva can take effect of that, because Gandiva, I think, requires face down. And then, you get more rear guards out of it, and they can also get multi-attack. And just like Jiva, it's not a once per turn, meaning if you flip over the over, as long as you have CB, you can just keep standing your rear guard. All around, Virgila is pretty solid. I do wish he didn't have a specification on grade 2s, but his skill is still good nonetheless. And if you can tell, he's actually rare, meaning Bushy finally listened to me and gave us a ride line that was like a full-on ride line, like not just a main grade 3 like they gave us with Transrotor, but like a full-on ride line that was truly a budget deck, because the highest rarity is the main grade 3, which is a rare. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. Maybe that's why I subconsciously like the deck, honestly, because it's a budget deck, and I wasn't even aware of it when I first started building it. So take that as you will. And move on to our last two cards. Both of them are orders. First, we run three copies of a Serious Fight because it's searchable via beat up and it's also, recyclable via its own skill. So grade 2 normal order played by Soul Blasting 1. Literally the only other Soul Blaster in this deck outside of this. So pretty much all of your soul goes to this. Choose an opponent's rear guard on the front row, retire it, and at the end of that turn, ditch your hand card. Choose a Serious Fight from your drop zone, put it in your hand. All around pretty solid. It can get rid of an opponent's rear guard very easily. Granted, it has to be front row, which sucks. But on the bright side, Virgila could still target anything, and combined with Virgila, it could technically retire your opponent's whole front row, which is pretty solid. And then by discarding a different hand card, you can bounce this back. I tell you what, I never use that skill, and that's mainly because I forget it, not because I don't want to or because I can't. And I remember one time, or a handful of times, where when I didn't do that, I lost the game because I needed an order, because beat up was on my board and would have been a 13k if I actually remembered to bounce the order back. So word to the wise, remember that the discard cost exists, and remember that you can bounce it back to hand at the end of the turn. 3 of a Serious Fight, very solid order though. Like I said, can get rid of the opponent's rear guards, while 1 is specifically in the front row isn't necessarily great. Combined with Virgila, it is retiring either a column, 2 important units, or 2 interceptors. Either way, good card, and it is recyclable, so 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of our last card in the deck, and that is Stardust Blade. This incredible order that I now realize is searchable via Shooting Star is just... It's amazing. So, play it by card blasting 1. If you have a Vanguard Virgila in its card name, look at the top 7 cards of your deck to 1 unit card with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard from among them. Call it your rear guard circle, shuffle the deck, and then choose one of your Vanguards until end of turn. It gets auto Vanguard. When your rear guards are retired by the ability of your opponent's card, stretch your deck to 1 normal unit, call it your rear guard and shuffle your deck. I cannot think of a single Vanguard in D that retires your opponent's rear guard during their turn. But if there is one, or not necessarily their Vanguard, but like a thing that does that, but if there is one, there we go. And then continuous Vanguard. When this unit gets plus 3k power for each normal unit on your rear guard and in your drop zone. The one time, because I've only been able to use this order one time in my entire time of playing this deck, the one time I played it on pure accident, so I wasn't even building towards this. It just happened on its own. And this was in the version that was not the aggro. This is the aggro version. I wouldn't even say this is full aggro because there's probably a better grade 2 out there and I just haven't thought of it. But the one time I used this in the non-aggro version, I on pure accident got a free 48k to the Vanguard. So on pure accident, I gathered 16 normal units to rear guard and drop zone. And the funny thing is, it's just normal units in general. They don't have to be different named. So to think about that for a second, on pure accident, like I think it was the second time I was playing that deck, I think it was game 2 with that deck, I gathered enough units to make a free 48k on Van. Plus his original 13, so he was already 61, and that was a Persona right turn, so 71. This card is good. On pure accident, I set that up. So thinking about it when you're actually doing it consistently in an aggro deck. 4 of Stardust Blade. Very good, gets rear guards, increases power off the wazoo, apparently is searchable via this, and not to mention the fact that it is also searchable via Justina. You are crazy not to run this out of 4 of, it's just amazing. Without further ado, that's it for this deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is very fun to play. I remember when it got revealed, I was not hyped for this at all. I was just like, they're wasting our time because I wanted to focus on Amajestars. But now that they are revealed and now that I've played them, I'm really glad they did. We got 2 really good ride line cards because we all know I don't like bad recyclable ride lines. So I really like these 2. They're both generic in some way, shape, and form. Not to mention the fact we have a decently good grade 3. It's a full-on budget ride line, and we have one of the most broken orders in the game that is only locked behind a CB. So without further ado, I'm going to end this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I cannot wait to see where this deck goes next. That's a phrase I never thought I would say, especially when it first got revealed, but now I am. So I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and for Twitch, and don't forget to sign up your Vanguards.